Hello, I'm Malcolm West, and this is Project Management Basics, everything you need to make your project a success. This is episode 3, planning. So the set of these sessions, 1 to 10, we're just a little way in now and really getting to grips with some of the fundamentals of project management, talking about how you plan, schedule, arrange your project. Part of the starting process, also interlinked with risk, so it's good to look at these 3 sessions together. All of these sessions are practical, using a minimal amount of jargon we can get away with. We're basing it around the free tools which are included that you can use, and we looked at downloading those in session 2 starting. And typically 10 minutes or so of a session. This one will be longer because there's quite a lot to get through here in planning. So let's get cracking. So why plan your project? One of our checklists again, really useful. Most important thing is it helps manage the sequencing of activities. Lots of things you want to do on a project, lots of things you need to do to achieve your overall objectives, and this helps you look really well at what has to be accomplished first, what can only be done once other things have been done, how all those sort of activities interarrange within the project. So how quickly can you get the project done if all those things go as well as they might go? Thinking about all that helps you understand the costs of the project. Things can take a certain amount of time. If you put extra people on, they can maybe be done quicker. If you take some people away, they might take longer to do. And so you can think about all that, the resources you need to accomplish the project, things you need to buy, people's time, and a range of other such things, and that can help you by planning to estimate the costs better. It can also help you reduce the risks. That's that really good understanding of how things interrelate, which comes from the planning exercise, will make you identify that certain activities you may not be able to quite as well judge when they're going to complete, so therefore you might need to start the next things that bit later or do something extra to improve the confidence of when something might complete, for example. So understanding the interrelationship between the tasks helps you manage the riskiness of the project. It's a really good communications aid, not only because it allows you to demonstrate to people where you are, but also visibly people can look through the thing and see how it's laid out, what's coming up, what should be finished, all those sorts of things. And that all gives confidence to people. The fact, most people take projects and planning to almost be the same thing. Planning is such an important part of a project that if you don't have a plan, people won't have any confidence that you're going to achieve. If they can see you've thought about it carefully, it's well planned out, not too nitty-gritty planned out, but it's well enough planned out for the type of project that you're running. The appropriateness is again important. That it's well enough planned out for the project you're running, and people can see that therefore you've thought about some of those important aspects and you're monitoring, you're continually comparing your progress to what you planned. That's a really useful way of understanding confidence again about are you going as well as you should be. What activities are coming up that might be problems, have you got over some problems in the past already. So planning really essential part of the project management process. Same chart we looked at last time. As the project progresses, it becomes more difficult to make changes and the costs of making those changes goes up. So if we can get our planning done nice and early and really understand how optimally we can deliver the activities of the project, then we can save some costs and reduce the riskiness of the project as well. Like we've said, this stuff definitely isn't linear, especially not at this sort of stage. The starting process involves aspects of planning and risk management, and we're going to go round those a few times until we get that how we want it to be, once it's settled enough for us to progress. So let's look at some of using a plan. So reading and using a plan. Here we're framing this around the planner tool. Slightly different in other applications, but broadly these fundamental principles we're going to talk about are the same in pretty much every meaningful planning tool. So just look through some of these things first, and then we're going to go away and do this in practice. So plans are made up of tasks generally, and tasks are activities that you need to accomplish to complete your project. They could be things that you're doing, they could be things somebody's giving you or a supplier's giving you, or something else that's happening around the auspices of the project but is directly connected to the project as a requirement for your completion. In this case, we've got a task that starts today and runs for 4 days, and we can see that shown here. The green line running through here is showing me today's date. And we can see some data at the bottom for the task that's identified at the top. This top part, we're building what's called a Gantt chart, technical term, and it describes the way these sort of things are displayed graphically. So we've got another task now. This is also starting today. This one runs for 5 days. Now it looks runs much longer than that, but part of the way these things are displayed is we have a concept of working time, non-working time. So we can see here in the white we've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. These are working days. Saturday, Sunday in this plan is not a working day. So this 5-day task starts on Tuesday, therefore finishes the end of the following Monday. You can adjust these if you want to. If you want to work Saturday mornings, if you want to not work bank holidays, you can adjust that sort of, or the number of hours in a working day, etc. as well. This one's set for 8 hours a working day. Working days Monday to Friday, bank holidays, non-working days. So those are my 2 tasks there. Now those are typical sort of tasks, start on a day, run for a duration, or another task might start on one day, finish on another defined day. Or date and time. Third sort of task we're dealing with here is a task with a dependency involved in it. So this task cannot start until the other 2 tasks are complete. It says here predecessors, tasks 1 and 2. So this task finishes on Friday, this one finishes on Monday, so this one can't start until Tuesday. We're dealing here in whole day tasks. If it was hours, it would obviously juggle to the hours or the minutes even. So this task starts on Tuesday. Now the arrows indicate that to me graphically on the diagram, and this is often the case with plans, as we were saying earlier. Some tasks can't start till others are finished, and this is a really good way of understanding that interrelationship. This is why it's such a good way of scheduling and laying out how your plan is going, how your project proceeds. And you're going to do that through a whole range of tasks. Your plan might be as simple as 2 or 3 tasks. It might be as complicated as 500 or 600 tasks. Here we're probably thinking of 10, 20, something like that. And it's a good way of breaking down your project into manageable chunks. How do you eat an elephant? 1 piece at a time. So you need to break down your project so you can really get a grasp of it, understand it. And this is a really good tool for doing that. So here we've picked out some tasks in particular colours. We've got one in blue. That indicates to us that it's something that people are coming on site, for example. Now these are tasks, these are the parts of the project. The next thing we've got here is a milestone, and a milestone is an indicator that you're a certain way through the project. It comes from obviously the milestones that stand at the side of the road that marked we're halfway down this particular road, or halfway between one town and another. And so you can set up milestones. They have in planning convention 0 duration, so they can be set to not affect the percentage complete of your project. We'll talk about that later, but they are marking something, and black diamond is the normal sort of indicator for that. So here I've got, we've informed the successful supplier. That's the sort of end of the supplier selection. So actually we can also then group these tasks together, and here they're shown banded by this black band. A grouping task does not set its own start and end date. That's set by the content sat within it. So if some of the tasks push out, the whole group summary pushes out, and the group summary will not only be bounded or set its start and end date by the tasks that sit within it, and therefore its duration, but also its percentage complete. As we start to mark percentage complete against some of our tasks here, those roll up to the group level. So we can see that one of these tasks is 20% complete, one is 14% complete. That means that that group as a whole is 5.7% complete based on the durations of the tasks within it. So groups are really useful for breaking down a more complex plan into chunks. If you've only got a 10 or 20 task project, you might not bother with them. If you've got more than that, then it's certainly helpful. And we can see here that we've got a plan as we build this up which has other groups in it for the other sort of main bulks of activity within the project. And I could then open some up and close others down. It allows in a bigger plan to have enough of it in focus to be able to see the detail, but also to see the context of where that sits. And in fact the system will automatically calculate for you a summary level task 0, which is the top level of the project, automatically, which is everything, a summary of everything in the project from its first date to its last date, and its overall percentage complete. So you can see the overall project here is now 1.1% complete because we've got lots of other activity which hasn't been done at all yet. So this is a plan. Hopefully you've seen some of these sort of things before. If you're dealing with projects, you're definitely going to see lots of them again. So this is us framing up how our project works and starting to collect data and monitor activities. And as I say, you can roll these things up and down. If you want an overview of the project, you run it rolled up like this. So let's go and have a look at some of that in practice. So we're in Community Edition as we were last time, and I've got my plan document open, and here I can see my file, schedule, risks and issues. So I'm going to check that out just like I would have done with the Word file, but rather than opening in Word, it's going to open in Planner. Planner comes pre-bundled with the Community Edition, so it will always open the Planner files in that for you. Now here is our plan. This is a templated plan, so it's got some content in it already. We can either use and adjust the content that's here, or we can delete it and add our own. So obviously in the example we just ran through on the PowerPoint, we were adding our own. Here we're going to edit some of the content. So what I'm going to do is perhaps move some of these things around. So I might take this task here. You see we click on a task and it identifies it in the Gantt chart area and then picks out its content in the table below. If we go and click on the table below, it picks it out in the Gantt chart. So we've been able to see lots of data and the Gantt chart content, and we can of course, change the dividing line in terms of how much is in each space if we want to. To edit something, we simply double click on it and it will open the edit task form, which we've got coming up now, and we can then start to work on that. So what I'm going to do is very simply move this task to start today. Nice button to take us straight to that. So that task now starts today. We can see that's today's dateline. It's moved the things with dependencies on beyond that, and it's readjusted all the summary groups to take account of that. We can go and take this one away, right click and delete. Take tasks out like that, and it's the normal sort of model for copy paste, delete, add, etc. Some of these things you can also do from up in the menu bar at the top. So we're going to come into this task here and understand a little bit more about it. I'm just going to double click on it again. So we've got the task name and a description. This is obviously the task name is very useful. When you first build a plan, you might often just go through sticking in task names. I've got this task, it starts after that one. It's part of that activity of scheduling and laying out the activities of your project. Then you might come back through and complete some more detail about the description of what's going on. You can put notes about what you want people to do and expand on that as a as a plan for that particular activity. And of course people can then come and put comments in here about what they've been doing to get on with that. But it's a really good way of recording in more detail actually than perhaps just a simple timeline what's going on within the project. We've got our planning information down here. As we said, things can be fixed duration, they can be single predecessor as this one is. So we've got this task starting after the baseline start milestone and running for 10 days. So I can make that run for 20 days instead, like that. And OK, and that will push that out and obviously push out the things that are sitting after it. And so I can build up my plan like this. If I want to add something new, I'll come down to a task here and I'm going to do add item, and that's going to allow me to add my new task into the plan. So I'm going to call this Malk task, and we're going to do something, and I can explain down here about it. It's going to be a fixed duration starting on a date running for a time. It's going to go fixed dates starting on a date running to another date, and we talked about those earlier. Or it can be a single predecessor one where I pick up a prior task like another task here, and we might run it after that one, so that's 10 days after that, like that, and I can create and close, and we'll see that showing here. So we can add our new task in very easily, like I say, and in fact we could have put much more data in about it at the time, or we can come back and do that. And one of the things we might do, especially if we're going on beyond the basics of just scheduling our task to costing our task as well, estimating how much the project's going to cost to complete, is we can resource it. So here we've got a tab for resources and costs, currently empty on this particular project. I've got a resource list here. These are the two resources that are currently being used in this template. So I could select one of them, Project Manager. So I want the project manager to work on this project, so work on this task 100% of the time. Now that means it's a 10-day task, it's 80 hours, it's 20 hours, £20 per hour. Therefore, we've got a cost, resource cost, to deliver this task of £1,600. Now I know I need to pay some T&S and some expenses, so I'm going to say there's £100 of extra cost associated, and that gives me fixed cost, resource cost, total cost for this task £1,700. Now I can build that up across my tasks to get an estimate for the project. I can put new people in just by typing it here myself like that. And I'm going to say, well, I'm going to be involved in this task actually 20% of the time. So that's worked out 16 hours for me. I don't have a cost yet for me. I'm going to go and put one of those in a second, and we'll see that feed through. So we're building up this cost model for the tasks, and you'll see down here actually there's a space to show the resource allocations to tasks in this summary. In fact, we can change these. We're going to come back in a minute and do that. So I'm going to come back to File up here, Manage Resources, and you see this is my resource list, and I can come select myself and say, well, I'm going to be £30 an hour like that, and that will have then rippled through into the cost model. In here you can add also, you can copy and paste in or load lists of people and costs and all that sort of stuff if you want to. I want to save my changes. So I can go in one task at a time adding that, or I can come in and add my costs here, and I can choose the person I'm interested in, which in this case is me, and I can see I'm currently set up on this one task. I also need to do some work on this task, and I need to do some work on that task as well, and it's going to work all that out. Some of them are going to need some fixed costs as well, so it builds all that up, and this is a really good way of working. You schedule out nice and quickly the plan, you can work all that around. Once you've got that how you think, you can go back and say, right, now what's it going to take to deliver it? Some people, some things I need to buy in, I can cost all that up, and that's going to build for me into an overall cost model for the project. Now we can see that it's actually behind the scenes, and we saw it at each individual task level. We can see that globally, and we do that by coming to here, Views and Filters, select a view, and we're currently running in a default mode. I'm going to switch this to a cost mode, and that changes the data that I'm seeing. It could also change actually the Gantt chart type display at the top as well, but in this case it's just going to change the data as part at the bottom. We see some of those things we're already familiar with on each particular task: the fixed cost, resource cost, therefore total cost of each task. We have some information about progress and percentage complete, which we'll skip for the time being. Come further over and we'll see therefore the totals, the cumulative costs for the project. So these are not necessarily interesting at the task level, but they're interesting at the summary level. So it's rolled up the summary groups for me to the project level. So here I've got cumulative total cost. The cost for delivering this project is £7,220 based on the information we've put in so far. So it's doing all that stuff for you and making sure you don't miss out on anything. If you put somebody in here and you've got them costed as a rate, they're going to appear in that overall cost of the project. Of course, you can choose to add a margin on if you want to. You can copy and paste this data out into Excel and play around with it. But this is about building up those fundamentals for you. Pretty straightforward to do. Of course, if we've added a task here, but you can do more sophisticated things, like I can copy a whole summary group and paste it in again. So I've got a duplication. If you're doing things, often elements of projects are repeated, within the overall scope of the project. So you can define something up nicely and then copy it. And then I can make this one here, the baseline start here. I can schedule that to appear, in fact, after one of my previous tasks. So we'll make it start rather than on a certain date, after the finishing of the prior task, like that. So we're building up our project plan now in a much more meaningful way. You'll see it's doubled up the cost because it knows this group was 7,220, this one was, so this one's double it. So this is really helpful and quick way actually of laying out and understanding your project, and it forms a really good, in project management terms, we call a baseline of definition of what you expect to do on the project against which you're going to compare. As you go through the project, we're going to start marking percentage completes and things like that up on here. So I can come back to my home, save and close, and check this back in, and that's going to form a record of what I want to do in the project. So I'm going to check it back in. and there we are, that's stored just like we did with our Word files and other things we were adding earlier. And that's why these two tools work really well together. We're documenting what we're doing here, and of course we're going to be integrating with risks in a minute as well. But some of those things we built into plans, the understanding of what's going on in those tasks, we might be writing up another documentation within here. So we're working through all this set of content to help us with the planning process for the project. So let's just nip back and finish off with our last slide again. So this was planning, as we said, with lots of interaction between starting, planning and risks. So next session is on risk management. I hope you found that useful. In the description section below you'll find links to all the sessions as part of this course. Thank you very much.